You work here, she said, eyes raking over my grocery store uniform like it was a costume for failure. Didn't think you'd end up this low. I smiled. Because in exactly 14 minutes, she'd be caught trying to slip a $28 bottle of Riesling into her designer bag. And I'd be the manager who signed the report. Funny how life circles back, isn't it? For years, my cousin Marissa made sure everyone knew she was better than me. Louder, prettier, more successful, more everything. She'd built her whole identity on looking down. But the thing about stepping on people to climb higher? Sooner or later, you run out of steps. And when she finally fell, I didn't push. I just stopped catching her. What happened next was rather unexpected. I will tell you everything. First, let me thank you for your continuous support. If you love stories like this one, support us by subscribing to this channel and comment where you are watching us from. It will be great to hear from you. Now let's jump into the details of what happened. My name is Elliot, and I manage a grocery store in the same town where I grew up. One of those places where every third person knows your mom and still calls you kid, even though you've been paying your own health insurance for over a decade. I wear a name tag, khaki pants, and shoes with orthopedic soles, and I know the difference between a code green and a code red faster than most paramedics. It's not glamorous, and God knows it's not what I dreamed of doing when I was 17 and had the reckless idea that I'd one day open a jazz bar or be on Food Network. But it's mine. I run a tight ship. Payroll, scheduling, supply chain delays, angry customers, bathroom key drama. I handle all of it. There's a quiet dignity in showing up every day, even when no one's clapping for you. I don't resent where I ended up. What I resent is how people like Marissa always made it sound like I'd failed simply by staying. Marissa was my older cousin, my aunt's daughter, 2 years ahead of me, and the kind of person who moved through life like the main character in a CW show. Even when we were kids, she always made me feel like I was in the background of her spotlight. She had the kind of confidence that could be mistaken for charisma if you didn't look too closely. But if you did, you'd notice it came at a cost. Usually someone else's comfort. Usually mine. She got early acceptance to NYU and told everyone at Thanksgiving dinner that people like Elliot should dream smaller so they don't end up bitter. She said it like a joke, but everyone laughed. I remember that moment like a shard of glass under the skin. I was sitting with a plate of mashed potatoes and gravy going cold, and she said it so casually I almost wondered if I'd imagined the cruelty in her tone. I hadn't. She only came back home a few times after that. Holidays, mostly. And each time she was louder, flashier, more insufferable. She talked about brunch with industry people and how dating apps were different when you're a 10. At Christmas, she brought a man who wore cashmere and looked like he hated every one of us. I don't know if they broke up or if she upgraded. Either way, she eventually stopped showing up. I hadn't seen her in 5 years. Not since that last Thanksgiving when she told me I looked perpetually underemployed. So when I turned the corner into aisle 6 that Wednesday morning and saw her standing there, Marissa, in a beige trench coat, sunglasses on her head, tapping away on her phone like she was waiting for someone to recognize her, I actually froze. My brain had to double take. It was like seeing a ghost you weren't scared of, just annoyed by. She didn't look up right away. I stood there for a beat, hand still gripping the price tag scanner. Then she lifted her eyes, and her lips curled into something between amusement and disbelief. "Elliot," she said, as if she weren't sure. I nodded. "Hey, Marissa." She blinked, slowly, and then looked me up and down. Her eyes landed on my name tag. "You work here." Her voice was soft, but laced with something sharp. "Didn't think you'd end up this low." I felt the heat crawl up my neck, but I smiled anyway. Reflex. My defense mechanism since the 6th grade. "Didn't think you'd end up back in town," I said, keeping my voice neutral. She laughed, like I'd said something funny instead of true. "Oh, I'm not back. Just visiting. Mom's got that new boyfriend and thinks I need to meet him before he dies of something predictable." She was the same, still talking like life was a script and everyone else was just there to deliver her setups. She didn't ask how I was. Didn't say it was nice to see me. Just stood there in her sunglasses and privilege, holding a bottle of oat milk and looking like the aisle wasn't worthy of her presence. I nodded and turned my attention to the shelf in front of me. Restocking oat milk. Poetic. "You're the manager?" she asked, the word manager slow like she was trying it on for size. Yeah, I said. Been running this place for a few years. Wow. She tilted her head. Didn't think you'd stick around town this long. I shrugged. Town's not so bad. Sure, if you like beige. There was nothing left to say, and we both knew it. So she gave me one last polite smug smile and walked away, her heels clicking on the tile. I watched her head toward the wine section, something twisting in my gut. Not just the old wound of her words, but something else. Something off. It was the way she walked. Or rather, the way she didn't look back. Like she didn't care that I might be watching. Like she was too calm for someone who just insulted someone who literally worked security protocol. I tapped the earpiece on my walkie. Mike? I said, you in the back room? Yeah. Came the voice of our floor supervisor. Check camera 7. Woman in a tan coat, sunglasses, wine aisle. Just keep an eye. You got it, he said, and I heard the chair squeak as he leaned forward. I didn't have proof. Not yet. But something in her tone, the casual disregard, the way she kept tapping her phone even during conversation, it all screamed distraction. Misdirection. It wouldn't be the first time someone thought they were too good to get caught. Hell, it wouldn't even be the first time someone from my own family tried something shady in my store. But it would be the first time I didn't look the other way. I took a slow breath and reminded myself, I wasn't 16 anymore. I didn't know her anything. Not my silence. Not my forgiveness. Not even my neutrality. I was the manager. And in exactly 14 minutes, if what I suspected turned out to be true, she'd be escorted out for theft. By my staff. On my authority. With my signature on the incident report. And that time, I'd be the one holding the clipboard. I kept working the floor, but my hands were moving on autopilot. Shelf labels. Stocking. Smiling at customers. My body did its job, but my mind had drifted toward that aisle again. Toward her. There was something about the way Marissa had said it. Didn't think you'd end up this low. It wasn't just the words. It was how casually she tossed them out, like she was commenting on the weather or an expired yogurt. I hadn't realized how long I'd been bracing for that kind of hit until it actually came. And once it did, I felt that familiar tightness in my chest. That ache I used to feel in high school when she'd make jokes at my expense in front of people who laughed too hard. I shouldn't have cared. I was 32. I paid my bills on time. I had savings. I ran a business. But there's something about family shame. It lingers in places therapy doesn't always reach. No matter how far you've come, all it takes is one sentence from someone like Marissa to knock the air out of your confidence. Still, there was something else inside me now. Something that hadn't been there all those years ago. I guess you could call it resolve. Back then, I would have just swallowed the insult. I would have avoided eye contact and pretended it didn't bother me. But now I had keys to every door in this place and the authority to sign termination forms. If she thought this job made me low, then she clearly didn't understand how much power comes from knowing you've built something, brick by brick, without anyone's permission or applause. Elliot. Mike's voice crackled through my earpiece, low and direct. Camera 7. She's tucking something into her coat. I stopped mid-step in front of the bread display. Confirm it, I said, turning my head subtly toward the front register where I could see the edge of the wine section from a distance. Already rewinding, he replied. It's a bottle of white. Long neck. Either Riesling or that overpriced Pinot Grigio. Definitely not in her cart. My jaw clenched. I exhaled through my nose. Copy. Keep eyes on her. I'm going to head toward register 2. Let's be ready. As I moved toward the front of the store, my steps slowed just enough to keep me invisible. I knew how to do this. Discretion was key. Customers got spooked when they saw employees swarming someone, even if they deserved it. And truth be told, I didn't want the scene. Not yet. From my spot behind the express lane, I had a partial view. Marissa was lingering by the floral display, pretending to study the carnations like they held state secrets. Her bag was over her shoulder, oversized, open at the top, stylish enough to pass inspection. But I knew better. I saw the way her hand hovered inside it just a moment too long before she pulled out her phone. Nervous ticks. Amateur moves. She was waiting for the right moment to walk out. Waiting for the exit to be clear. I wondered if she had done this before. That was the part that unsettled me the most. Not the act itself, but the ease with which she did it. The way her eyes darted, not with panic, but calculation. as if this was a strategy she'd used more than once. I keyed the mic again. She's heading toward the door, I said. Coordinate with security. I want this clean. Already in position, Mike replied. Got Tony at the entrance. We'll do it quiet. I stepped into view as she approached the automatic doors, clipboard in hand, calm and neutral. Our eyes locked, and then she heard it. That soft beep of the security scanner. Just one little chirp that might have been nothing, but it wasn't. Tony stepped in. Excuse me, ma'am, he said, voice polite but firm. Do you mind stepping aside for a moment? Marissa's entire body stiffened. What? Is there a problem? Her tone changed fast, high-pitched, incredulous, eyes darting to see who was watching. Tony nodded toward her bag. Just a quick look. Sometimes the tags don't deactivate properly. Won't take a minute. I didn't even buy anything yet, she snapped, voice rising. Mike approached from the other side. We can walk you to the office and get it sorted. And then her gaze shifted, past Tony, past the few customers now staring, to me. Her lips curled. You've got to be kidding me, she said, stepping forward. You set this up? I lifted the clipboard. Ma'am, I said evenly. Please cooperate with my staff. Her eyes burned. You're really doing this? To your own family? This is store policy, I replied. And you are currently in violation. She looked like she wanted to throw something. Her hand went to her bag, and with a dramatic flair, she pulled out the bottle, Riesling, of course, and held it up like she was holding contraband at a protest. Here, is this what you wanted? Huh, are you happy now? Ma'am, Mike said again, gently taking the bottle. Let's continue this in the office. People were whispering. A toddler pointed. One of the older cashiers looked visibly uncomfortable. But I stood still. I didn't look away. I didn't flinch. Marissa let herself be led to the back. And me? I followed. For the first time in years, she couldn't rewrite the story. Couldn't pivot the conversation or paint me as the sad cousin with the mediocre life. Not today. Today, I was the one holding the pen. The office in the back of the store was never designed for dignity. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The beige walls were scuffed from too many years of swivel chairs banging into them. There was a filing cabinet that didn't quite close all the way and a faint smell of burnt coffee from the break room next door. Nothing about the room said interrogation, but it didn't need to. The shame walked in with her. Marissa sat across the desk from me, arms crossed, sunglasses perched back on her head, like she couldn't fully commit to being vulnerable. She looked around like she wanted to comment on the decor, like she was trying to reclaim some ground by sneering at the surroundings. But her mouth stayed shut, probably for the first time in a while. Tony stood by the door. Silent, arms folded, professional. He wasn't just security, he was witness. Policy. Protection. And he knew not to speak unless spoken to. I pulled the clipboard toward me, flipping to the incident report. I filled in the basic details: time, date, location. Offense: attempted theft of store property. Estimated value: $27.99. You're really doing this? Marissa's voice broke the silence. She didn't sound angry anymore. She sounded stunned, like the reality of it was finally settling in. Over a bottle of wine. I didn't look up. It's not about the wine. She scoffed. Of course it is. Look at you, sitting behind that little desk like you finally won. I looked her in the eye then. I didn't want this. Her laugh was sharp. Yeah, you did. You probably live for moments like this. Bet you never imagined the day would come when you'd get to humiliate me. You humiliated yourself, Marissa. That landed harder than I expected. Her eyes flickered, something between hurt and rage, and she looked away, chewing the inside of her cheek like she was holding something in. I watched her carefully, not because I wanted to gloat, but because I needed to see it. The shift, the unraveling, the moment where the mask slipped and the real person, the scared one, showed their face. For years, she'd strutted around family events like she had life by the throat. And now she was here, in my office, trying to act like this was all beneath her while sitting in a chair bolted to the floor. I can't have this on my record, she said, quieter now. You don't understand. I was just laid off. Things have been tight. I was going to put it back. I said nothing. I just kept writing. Elliot, she tried again, her voice softer. Come on. It's me. I know we haven't always been close, but we're family. I put the pen down and looked at her. Really looked. You humiliated me in front of everyone, every chance you got. You treated me like I was beneath you because I didn't move to New York or work in PR or whatever it is you bragged about. And now, you want to use family like it's a shield? Where was that when you were laughing at my job? At my life? She blinked fast, and I saw her swallow something hard. I wasn't thinking, she mumbled. No, you were thinking exactly the way you've always thought, that you'd never have to answer to someone like me. Her voice cracked then. Please don't press charges. I leaned back. Let the weight of her request sit in the room. I'm not going to call the police, I said finally. But I am writing this up. It's going in the store's system. And you're banned from returning. If you come back, the next time won't be so civil. Elliot, I'm not doing this to hurt you. I'm doing it because this is my job. And you don't get to walk in here, insult me, steal from me, and walk out like nothing happened. She nodded slowly. Tears were forming now. She didn't wipe them. Just let them fall, silent and humbling. There was no big outburst. No final jab. Just a slow erosion of whatever armor she had left. I'll walk her out, Tony said quietly. I nodded, and Marissa stood. She looked at me one last time, eyes swollen, lips trembling. And for a second, just a second, she looked like the girl I remembered from family picnics before all the ego and showmanship. But I didn't say anything. Tony opened the door, and she walked out without another word. I sat there for a long time after they left. I should have felt triumphant, vindicated. Instead, I felt hollow. Because this wasn't revenge. This wasn't me finally winning. This was just sad. Marissa had always acted like she was better than me. But today proved we weren't so different. We were just two people trying not to drown in the expectations of everyone who thought they knew us. And while I hadn't sunk, she clearly had. I filed the report just before closing. Typed it clean. No extra commentary. Just the facts, time, location, item, description of the suspect. Action taken. Manager's name, Elliot R. Martinez. It was protocol. I'd written dozens of these over the years. Shoplifters, drunk customers, even a teenager once trying to pocket allergy meds. But this one sat differently in the system. Not because the crime was unusual, but because the name in the suspect line had once shared my Christmas stocking. I logged out of the system, locked the office, and walked the closing round through the store. The floors were freshly mopped, carts corralled, lights dimmed to their overnight setting. On the surface, it was just another night. But my stomach was in knots. I told myself it was stress, standard after any employee handles a confrontation. But I knew better. It was the quiet before the storm. I hadn't even made it to my car before the fallout began. My phone buzzed. 1 text, then 3, then 7. The group chat. Martinez Famcore. It was the same thread that had once planned baby showers, shared old photos, and coordinated Thanksgiving side dishes. Tia lured. Elliot, what happened with Marissa at the store? She's saying you had her detained? Aunt Jerry, her mom. This is disgusting. You embarrassed your cousin in public over a misunderstanding? Cousin Julia. Wait, what? What happened? Eyes. Uncle Rick. Jesus, are we calling the cops on each other now? I didn't respond. Not yet. I just sat in my car, staring at the glow of the screen while the thread spun out of control. Marissa, I don't want to get into the details. I was just visiting. I was under so much pressure, and Elliot, well, he made a choice. Tia lured. You could have pulled her aside privately. Family first. There it was. The phrase that always showed up when someone wanted me to roll over and keep quiet. Family first. As if that hadn't been weaponized my whole life. As if being blood meant tolerating disrespect indefinitely. I finally typed. Me. She stole from my store. I followed protocol. That's all there is to say. It was like tossing gasoline into a bonfire. Aunt Jerry, you could have looked the other way. For God's sake, Elliot. She's had a rough year. Me. And I haven't. No one answered that. Not immediately. But then, one text came in, separate from the group chat. Direct. Carmen, my younger sister. Finally, someone put her in her place. You good? I stared at her message for a long time. I didn't realize how much I needed someone on my side until she sent it. Carmen had always been more observant than she let on. Quieter, more diplomatic. But she saw through Marissa years ago, saw the games, The way our aunt excused her behavior while holding everyone else to a different standard. Carmen got it. Me. I'm all right. Just tired. Carmen. Let them scream. You did the right thing. And I had. I knew that. But knowing it didn't stop the guilt from creeping in any way. Because that's the thing about family. They'll plant a flag in your chest, call it love, and then ask why you're bleeding on their carpet. The next morning, the gossip had legs. A customer whispered at checkout, "Is it true about your cousin?" Another one, an older woman who'd once told me I reminded her of her grandson, actually patted my hand and said, "Don't let them shame you. You did the right thing." That was before she handed me a $2 off coupon. Even employees were buzzing. I overheard Danny from Produce tell someone, "I think it's kind of badass." No one ever thought Elliot would stand up to her. That stung more than I expected. It made me realize how deep the perception went. That even my co-workers, people who saw me hold this store together, still believed I might crumble under a well-dressed bully with a familiar face. Marissa hadn't called, hadn't texted, hadn't apologized, but I did see the Instagram post. A filtered picture of a glass of wine. Cheap, not the kind she used to brag about, with a long caption about how some people love seeing you fall because they were never rooting for you in the first place. Comments were full of vague affirmations. "You got this. Shake the haters. Their loss, queen." She never mentioned me by name. But she didn't have to. The people who needed to know, knew. And the rest? Well, they'd write their own version of the story anyway. I could have responded. Could have aired it out. Posted security footage, time-stamped records. But I didn't. Because I had something better than a curated narrative. I had the truth. An assigned incident report. That night, as I closed out the register reports, I took one last look at the digital log. The document was there. Permanent. My name in the signature field. I didn't smile. But I didn't flinch either. Somewhere between rage and regret, I had found clarity. This wasn't about revenge. It was about reality. Marissa had always acted like the world owed her a soft landing. For the first time, it didn't. It didn't even take 48 hours before my name became a curse word in my own bloodline. At first, the texts were passive-aggressive, coded language, long-winded paragraphs that sounded civil but reeked of guilt-tripping. The kind that starts with, "I'm just concerned," and ends with, "But you do whatever helps you sleep." Classic emotional sabotage. My Aunt Jerry led the charge, naturally. She always had a flair for victimhood, like it was a family heirloom she'd polish and parade whenever Marissa faced consequences. But by day 3, the masks came off. The family group chat exploded. No more subtext. No more politeness. Just digital carnage. "Uncle Rick, this is ridiculous. What Elliot did was petty. Overwine. Cousin Becky. She stole, Rick. Call it what it is. Aunt Jerry. Becky, stay in your lane. This isn't your fight. Becky. It's everyone's fight when someone turns into a damn kleptomaniac and blames everyone else." Tia lured. "This is why we don't do family reunions anymore. Too much drama." Me. "She stole from my store. I didn't make her do it. I just didn't let her get away with it." Marissa, finally chiming in. "I made a mistake. But some people clearly waited their whole life for me to slip. Congrats, Elliot. Hope the security footage makes you feel powerful." I stared at that message for a long time. Because that right there, that sentence, was the core of it. Not the theft, not the embarrassment, but the fact that I had flipped the power dynamic, and she couldn't stand it. I'd taken back something she'd always believed she owned, the right to narrate my worth. She'd lived for so long in a version of the family where I was the cautionary tale, the one who never left town, the one who settled, the one she could mock safely at every holiday dinner. She needed me small to feel tall. And now, that image had shattered. And it wasn't just her who was scrambling. Because when one person breaks free from a role they were assigned, it exposes how fake the whole play was to begin with. People started taking sides. Carmen came in swinging again, dropping screenshots of Marissa's Instagram caption and calling it pathetic deflection. Carmen, it's wild how she's always the victim but never accountable. If Elliot had done this, y'all would have thrown him to the wolves. My mom tried to be neutral. God bless her heart. Mom, let's all just breathe. What's done is done. Maybe this is a wake-up call for everyone. But neutrality is a stance. And even she knew it. Later that night, Carmen called me. Do you feel better? She asked. Not really, I admitted, flopping onto the couch with my shoes still on. I thought I would. I thought it'd feel like justice. But honestly, it just feels messy. That's because you're not cruel, she said. You didn't want to hurt her. You just didn't want to be hurt by her anymore. That hit me harder than it should have. Because that was exactly it. I hadn't gone looking for revenge. I wasn't out to ruin her. I just didn't want to keep playing the fool in her story. I didn't want to keep laughing off the jabs. I didn't want to keep being the bigger person while she walked through life torching every bridge and expecting us to rebuild it for her. I think she's always believed she's more important than the consequences, I said. Like life will always give her a second take. She learned this week that not everyone will, Carmen replied. And maybe that was the most merciful thing you could have done. There was silence for a moment. Comfortable, shared. Then she added, also, Aunt Jerry blocked me. So there's that. I laughed for the first time in days. Wear it like a badge, I told her. Means you're doing something right. The group chat eventually went quiet, but only because everyone had either left or muted it. A digital family reunion, burnt to the ground. I didn't feel guilty for lighting the match. I felt relieved to finally be out of the smoke. That week, I noticed a change in how people looked at me. Not just customers, but coworkers, neighbors, even my shift leads. There was a new kind of respect in their eyes. Not because I'd taken someone down, but because I'd stood up. People don't always say it, but they watch. They watch how you handle moments like that. And whether they say it out loud or not, they remember who stayed silent and who didn't flinch. The day after everything blew up, the store ran as usual. We sold out of pumpkin spice cereal. Someone left a trail of broken pretzels down aisle 9, and I spent 20 minutes explaining to a customer why we were out of her favorite almond butter. Business as usual, on the outside. But I was different. There was a stillness in me, a kind of post-storm quiet I hadn't felt in years. I wasn't waiting for someone to make a snide comment. I wasn't bracing for the next group chat ambush or a backhanded compliment at a family dinner. The silence wasn't empty, it was clean. Marissa hadn't called. She hadn't apologized. And I hadn't expected her to. She was the kind of person who saw apologies as a performance, not repair. And I didn't need a performance anymore. What I needed, I had finally given myself. Permission to stop pretending we were okay just because we shared blood. It's funny, isn't it? How long we let family be the exception to our boundaries. How we make excuses, carry weight that was never ours, laugh off insults that slice deep. We do it in the name of keeping the peace. But it's never our peace we're keeping. It's theirs. The ones who depend on our silence to keep their image intact. That chapter closed when I signed that incident report. I saw Aunt Jerry at the farmer's market a week later. She looked away like I was a stranger. I let her. We didn't know each other as seen. She'd made her choice when she called me heartless for doing the right thing. She didn't ask how I was. She didn't say thank you for not pressing charges. She just pulled her sunglasses over her eyes and disappeared into the tomatoes. Fine by me. I wasn't angry anymore. Just done. The family never formally cut me off, but the group chat never revived. No more invites to awkward dinners. No more last-minute birthday reminders. It was like I'd been gently slid off the family mailing list without ceremony. And weirdly, it felt good. Because for the first time in my life, I wasn't trying to earn a place at a table where I was never fed. Instead, I was building my own. Carmen came over one night with takeout and a bottle of cheap red. Not stolen, I swear, she joked. We ate on my porch, talking about nothing and everything. About how this town had changed, about her job, about whether or not we should start a new group chat with just the same cousins. At one point she looked at me and said, "You know, you're the one who changed. Not her. She's been this way forever. You just stopped letting her win." And she was right. This whole thing wasn't a moment of revenge. It was a shift in gravity. I stopped orbiting people who didn't care if I ever landed safely. I stopped laughing when it wasn't funny. I stopped making room for people who only showed up to take. So no, I didn't win. This wasn't a game. This was a reckoning. Marissa had always bet that I'd stay quiet, that I'd flinch, that I'd back down because it was easier than rocking the boat. And for years, she was right. But now I don't flinch. Now, I signed the report. If you've ever been made to feel small by your own family, if you've ever been the quiet one, the failure, the safe target, I hope this story reminds you that silence isn't virtue if it comes at your expense. Setting boundaries isn't betrayal. It's survival. Drop a comment below if you've had to walk away from toxic family ties and how you found peace on the other side. Your voice matters, even if it shakes.